Hey, I'm back, Marnie Batista. Hope you're having a great day, as they say. So this video is about, I thought I would do a little recap. Today is the day, the anniversary of my dad's passing in 2019. My dad said that every 5 years your life changes. He wrote a blog about it. And I was like, yeah, sure, Dad. And now I'm like, damn, he was super wise. So I thought I would reflect on the good, the bad, and the ugly of making a radical change in midlife, because I started this radical living challenge really 5 years ago. So I think I've shared this before, but my mom passed away when she was 64. And that's when I really had that, like, if I had 9 years left to live, is this how I want to spend it moment? And so here we are 5 years later. So I thought I would share the good, the bad, the ugly. So the good. This list is really, really long. And I traveled a lot before my midlife reinvention. But in the past 5 years, all my experiences have been much richer. Because I have been more actively participating and engaged with everything, because I have, in my design of my life, intentionally showing myself of what I'm capable of. So once I figured out what I call, and I teach, and it's in my book, Your Radical Living Challenge, 7 Questions for Living a Meaningful Life, my soul map, it guided me to really understand that what I value are new and novel experiences and connection to people I love and nature. And so as a result of that, I really started to curate experiences and adventures and travel that feel like literal magic. Like, I feel like it is a soul expression of me in motion. So highlights, I visited 40 states with my husband and my 2 cats. We sold our house in LA after 25 years, lived in an RV for nearly a year. I've hiked miles and miles and miles in some of the most glorious spots in the country, seen national parks, experienced so much of the landscape of our country. And the other thing, which I'm going to talk more about in another video, is I created what I call adult semester abroads. And so, because I never did that in college, because I was too busy doing what I was supposed to do or doing what I should do. And back in the day, if you're my age or around my age, we didn't do like gap years, really. That wasn't as typical, or junior year abroads, really. So I've been able to live abroad twice, spending 2 months in Portugal and lived in Australia for a month, and really savored those experiences. I have international family. My husband's from the UK. So I visited them in Europe and, like I said, Australia. I've hosted them. I got to go rafting down the Salmon River and lived 100% off the grid for 6 days and 5 nights. I kayaked in the Colorado River around Horseshoe Bend in Arizona. I learned how to cross-country ski, snowshoe. I got back to alpine skiing after my ski accident in 2020. And I'm more healthy and more fit than I've ever been in my entire life. And I chose a home base that is what I would call a destination of choice, which means that every day feels like a vacation, even though hubby and I are kind of working full time. So that's definitely been the good. So beyond like the bucket list, I think that the most important piece and the best part of life reinvention is that I finally know that and realize that I'm capable of so much more than I ever thought I could do. I resisted change in my life in so many ways because I felt like if I changed one thing, it would be like a Jenga, right? Like the whole thing would just crumble. The absolute best part of a radical living lifestyle and midlife has been letting go of so many things that I was attached to that I thought were my security and safety, the way I thought my business should look, the house, the community, lifestyle, friends, everything. Even my marriage had to change dramatically so that it could grow. And what I finally learned, was that all the letting go was directing me to something much better. And so if I were bottom lining the good, it would be like, I'm not only willing to risk endings so I can experience new beginnings that are soul aligned, but I can't tolerate what is good enough. And then in that's where the magic happens. And I learned I can do hard shit. So, in my business, learning how to solve complex problems that I used to just rely on other people, taking a more active role in my dad's legacy business, making decisions, learning how to bake bread, being more resilient, pursuing my dreams, even when it seems impossible, right? So like in my invention, finally selling a traditionally published book to a big 5 publisher, biggest blessing, healing work, and how to live in the messy middle. So that's the good. Now let's talk about the bad. I think the hardest part of midlife reinvention for me is what I call the liminal space. And I didn't make that up. Joan Borsinko is the first person I heard, she's like a researcher, talk about the liminal space. And she talks about it as the space between what was and what is becoming. And I'm a person who likes control. I thrive on solutions. I think I talked about this before. I love quick fixes. This journey has really taught me how to be patient. Because there's so many times when I was like, oh God, I've made the biggest mistake of my life. The highs were high, but the lows were lows. And sometimes there's no highs. And so when I created the Radical Living Challenge as a framework and I set out to design the system to create change, I didn't think it was going to be as challenging, even though I named it a challenge. And this is kind of funny. Maybe you can relate to this, but I watch shows like Survivor for years. And, they interview people and they're always like, why I did this was for X, but what happened was I became more of myself, or I changed who I am, or I realized, and I wanted those realizations for myself. But I didn't realize it'd be that hard. Most people don't sign up for hard stuff in life. Life happens and then you have to deal with it. I didn't want to take that wait and see approach to living my life. I wanted to create and design it on my terms. I just had to figure out what those terms were. And that was really, really hard. So here's a list of the bad, just to be fair. Often I regretted selling my house. I cried about it a lot. I lived in it for 25 years. The day we moved out, I even called my real estate agent to ask if I could stop the transaction. There was a lot of chaos in all of that moving. We moved 8 times in 6 months. We got capital gains from selling the house. We flubbed that up. We bought so much crap to live in the RV for a year and we didn't end up needing it. That was chaotic. I discovered some things that were going on in my business that were useless, that I was paying for, subscribing to. The extent of my fails as a CEO, as I took apart my business and kind of blew it up, were very painful. I know that was a good thing, but the process of breaking that down so that I could rebuild was hell. And I honestly blame my husband for a lot of everything as often as I could. And it has put our marriage to the test. We've argued, we've snapped, we've bickered, we've let each other down. In a lot of ways, we're still here. And then also struggling with the financial highs and lows of building a new business and adapting and creating a new lifestyle, right? But in the end, I got what I longed for. I got true transformation. And I was really grateful that I had a structure and a framework and a coach to help me through the bad. Okay, the ugly. I think that the ugliest part of midlife reinvention has been the losses that I've experienced. I've lost some friendships, some family members. It's been tricky. But when I remember that it's not my job to correct other people's impression of me, that's literally been my life raft. And it's also been strange letting go of the old ways of defining success and myself. my identity. Midlife is challenging because we're figuring out how to cherish the parts of ourselves that have ended, and also taking on brand new challenges. That's super unsettling. I'll say that again. Maybe you can relate, right? Because we're figuring out how to cherish the parts of our life that have ended and also to take on a brand new identity and new challenges. And that's why midlife is unsettling. And I don't have my parents to talk about this with as an adult orphan. It's just been very unsettling. And sometimes figuring out my new identity has stopped me in my tracks. And so I'm still learning how to find ways to express the parts of me that are ambitious while also honoring the parts of me that just don't have the grind in me. And so things like, how do I strive for a sense of healthy significance versus being driven by ego? How do I feel present and satiated while also craving a fuller expression in what I want to experience? Those are the things that I'm struggling with. I cannot speak for any other women in midlife, but I can say that I can't imagine having not created the Radical Living Challenge as a way of doing midlife. I feel rooted in who I am and more fulfilled in ways than I could have ever imagined. I had to let go to let things come in, including you. And I'm so grateful if you're watching this. So I'm raising my coffee, my cold coffee. Here's to all of us finding moments to live radical.